Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and New Planet, who dis? Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's great to have you back here.
It's great to be back.
And it's great to finally talk about Star Trek. We've got a little catching up to do because I need your thoughts on not only tonight's episode, the episode that is the first part of the two-parter, last week's episode, but also Caves. We haven't talked since then. What'd you think of Caves? There's Caves.
I liked it, but I tend to like a flashback episode. I feel like that's a classic, like a sitcom bit.
Yeah.
And I love a sitcom, and I love a sitcom bit.
It was definitely
not the Baja Blast.
It was I got the Baja Blast. Yeah. It was definitely one of those. Here's a bunch of things that didn't happen. Like do you think the clip show is dead? The clip show that may have been dead before you were really aware of watching TV. But of course, the clip show. How do we find a way? A way to make an episode of TV when we don't have anybody around? There's a writer's strike, or we just don't have any money. And so we show all these things that happen. Remember all those great times and then Archie's yelling at Meathead about something. Do you think, is that just dead now? Does that not exist?
No, I think it's not dead at all.
Really?
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Here's why.
Yeah.
I've been watching Atlanta for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And that show, I don't know, have you seen it?
I've seen a couple episodes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I don't know what couple episodes you saw, but I think that it genuinely is like, I think it's some of the best television like ever made.
Oh.
And something that they do that shows I feel like do less and less now is they'll just have an episode and the main characters will barely be in it. Like they'll just do like a one-off. I just watched an episode and literally none of the main characters were in it, and it was still like one of the best episodes of TV. Like it was still, the quality was still so high.
Sure.
And so I think that television, like we can learn from that. Like Atlanta was successful, not like in a way that I would expect it to be based on the quality of like show that I saw. Like,
sure.
Not 100% like everyone's watching it like a Game of Thrones or a Succession or something where it's very like mainstream and like in the paper.
Yeah.
But I have a couple theories as to why, but that's for a different podcast, I suppose.
Yeah. So you think that like focusing on non, stars of the show, side characters and that sort of thing is taking the place of kind of filling in time or, not eating up, our money or resources. Like the last season of Game of Thrones, well, I think everybody knows that the production was a little troubled, but it was only like 6 episodes long. And in the old days, they'd just go, we'll just have an episode where Tyrion gets hit on the head and he remembers all the times that, Jaime saved him or something like that and rekindled the love of his brother. We'll play some of the greatest hits. We'll have Ed Sheeran come back and play some songs. They would have tried to pad that out. But you're saying in the case of Atlanta, it's like, well, I don't know, Donald Glover's shooting a movie or something like that. So we can just see what Paperboy's up to or just kind of fill it out a little more. Plus, seasons as a whole are much shorter. Like the commitment is a lot smaller too.
I think it's also like a testament to what can happen when you give like a really good writer's room like free reign.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think 100% like the what did you call it? I called it like a flashback episode. You called it like a clip show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely not dead because like someone who has like immense talent, like the immense talent that is working on Lower Decks, they can not only pull it off, but just like make it a really good episode. Like I feel like sometimes people, and I have this when I'm watching Star Trek, when my roommates like pop in and watch one episode of Star Trek with me, they'll be like, ugh, it's a bottle episode. And I've had this reaction before where I'm like, no, it's not. And it's like definitely a bottle episode. Like it's like they made one set, the whole it's like the doors are locked. We're in the treehouse
Yeah,
for
right.
40 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely a bottle
Yeah.
episode, but it when people say it, it feels like an insult. And so like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And it's like you could totally do like a bottle episode and still have it be like an amazing episode.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of shows are self aware about their bottleness or their fill in or their clip showness. The example that you think of, or I think of recently, it's not that recent right now, but would Fly, an episode from Breaking Bad in their I think fourth season, that was directed by Ryan Johnson, and they had to basically eat up a bunch of money because they were going to have a big finale. They had built this giant underground lab set. They had spent all this cash, and they just needed an old school bottle episode. Nobody does anything. We can't go anywhere. No other sets. And it was just Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston bouncing off of each other, in this one room for 50 minutes. And it was, some people say it's the best episode of the show. So they're definitely learning to adapt to that sort of thing. And I think that's really great. And as far as caves go, it's definitely, I think part of it is a love letter to that sort of thing, but it's also just them going, what ideas do we got? Let's take these
Yeah,
ideas. Let's
why
give
not?
everybody something to do, and let's just get it all together. So that's interesting.
Which I love. And I also think I wish more TV shows would do that where they're like, you know what, we don't have to blow the budget to make a great episode. And I was
true.
thinking about not to be like too much of like a film major about it,
Whoa.
but when I was watching this episode of Atlanta,
yeah,
I was thinking about my student films.
Okay.
And I, with so much peace and love, because I had a few, classmates who I think were also very talented.
Yeah.
But my professor and my grades and like anyways, my student films they're very good. And they're very good because I was like, well, here's what we're working with. Zero budget. Zero budget.
Right.
Talent, but like senior and college talent, you know what I mean? Like not lighting. So both of my senior films,
Sure.
I did like found footage bits, which is like something that's been done before,
Yeah.
but completely cured all these issues of like the camera footage isn't perfect or the lighting isn't perfect.
Yeah.
And so it plays much better than like if I had attempted to make something where I was like trying to have the lighting be perfect or like whatever. Like it just, I think it's a good creative challenge.
Yeah.
And so I think when you have a writer's room that's like Lower Decks, like you said, it was a tribute to that type of show. But yeah, they ran with it, and I thought it was so fun.
That's interesting. Well, we got to see your films, so just put them up, and we'll just have a window. And but I really like film criticism on Twitter, and a lot of film critics that you watch on Twitter, everybody's younger than me, but like they're very young, and if you go back far enough in their timelines, it's like, oh, we're starting to get student films. Here's a little 5-minute thing. Here's a little thing. Clearly they were doing something on campus, and that sort of like predates their actual film criticism. So I think that's kind of interesting. In fact, you're not a real film critic if you don't have some kind of questionable student films in your YouTube queue. That's what I think.
I definitely should. That'd be funny if mine were like public. I don't think I've ever made them public. I think I tweeted I think one time before on the show we were talking about them and you were like, tweet it, and I tweeted it and it was like only people with the link can view.
Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah. Don't let it get around too much. Well, let's talk about what's happening in the world of Star Trek, the news. There's not a ton of news. I did want to update you on an ongoing story, and that is the debut of Kid Cudi's fashion line and his single, Heaven's Galaxy, which premiered at New York City Comic Con almost 2 weeks ago now. Did you get a chance to hear the single at all?
I haven't. You know what? That's so silly. I completely forgot about the single. I was so focused on the clothing line.
Yeah.
And but I also have to say, I was like so kicking myself. I have an aunt who, she and her wife moved to New York a couple of years ago, and I was like, I'm such an idiot for not like flying to New York and staying at
Sure.
Karen's apartment,
Yeah.
going to New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
So next year, I swear to God, I'm gonna be there.
You gotta do
And
it.
I was so upset with myself because I was watching I'm so excited about the new Percy Jackson show, and so they were doing all the Percy Jackson stuff at Comic Con.
Yeah.
But So no, so frankly, I've been staring at and holding myself back from buying anything from the clothing line, and I haven't heard the song. Is it good? I
Um,
don't think I know a single Kid Cudi song.
it's okay. It's all right. There's something about like, and I don't know if they're doing them specifically for a specific aesthetic, like like the Rihanna song for Star Trek Beyond was okay, but it felt more like a thing that would be playing like while Kirk is doing something in a movie than like a Rihanna song. And
Mm-hmm.
the Cuddy songs like that too. Like it's all right, but it's kind of it's very spacey. It's very kind of it's like this whole sort of soundscape, and he doesn't really like rap or sing over a lot of it. So, but I mean, it's an interesting release. And then, yeah, I saw the fashion line too. I'm not cool enough to wear any of that stuff, but it looked great.
No, I mean, I think the bomber jacket is really cool. I don't know if are bomber jackets like in.
Um,
I
this is
feel like,
this is from the future. They're in the future
oh,
because this is from Star Trek. So
you're
yeah,
so right.
yeah,
You're so right.
he's ahead of the
Um,
time.
they will be in.
Yeah,
I think the jacket's really cool. I don't think I could ever pull it off, but I don't wear very much color.
well,
I don't
okay,
know if you put that together
yeah,
about me.
film student, right? Okay,
Um, the sweatshirt, the crew neck,
yeah,
that was difficult. That was difficult but I was like, I will be afraid to wear it. Like I don't like spending too much money on clothes.
yeah.
It'll stay in the closet.
Well, you gotta, go to more of these things, more of these cons, and they have a couple extra laying around. You make friends with
I
somebody,
know.
make some
I
connections,
still
and
might order one. Is it still up? I
it
can't
might
even
be,
look. I can't even look.
it might be.
I'm ordering. I'm at the stage where I'm ordering Christmas presents, so I can't even be looking at that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So maybe for 2024.
Well, and you
Well,
know what I was hoping? I was like, please have something that's like simple enough that I can order it for a present for my dad.
yeah,
I don't know if Scott can wear any of that stuff.
yeah. I don't know.
I
Maybe.
don't know if Scott would want any of that stuff.
Well, Kid Cudi's in the future. Also in the future is Super Bowl 58, I think it is at this point. And it, of course, is being broadcast on CBS. It's also being held in Las Vegas. And not to let an opportunity slip by, Paramount will be turning the Mirage volcano at the Mirage Casino and Hotel in Las Vegas into Paramount's Mountain of Entertainment for the 4-day celebration this next February. So they'll be taking the pre-existing mountain set, maybe capping it or something to make it Mount Paramount, and then they're going to have like a gondola, and they're going to have synergies with the Ninja Turtles are going to be there, SpongeBob's going to be there, the ghosts are going to be there. They're going to make it into Yellowstone's going to be there. We all love Yellowstone, Mr. Yellowstone. We know that show. So anyway, they're turning into a big extravaganza to celebrate and promote Paramount materials, and you might see some Star Trek stars there. No guarantee, I guess, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, if I was a Star Trek actor and I liked football, no brainer, right?
Sure.
Like, of course, I'm
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, I mean, you probably, have a way to get tickets, and then if, the Mirage wants to put you up for a couple days, sure, yeah.
Yeah, works out great. So I hope to see. Frankly, I better see the photos.
Yeah, I could see Edson Mount putting one foot up there on top of that Mount Paramount, and just looking out over the strip, waving to the cowboy. Um, so that's what's going on in the future there. But for the present, we have seen the 9th and 10th episodes of the 4th season of Star Trek Lower Decks, episodes entitled The Inner Fight and Old Friends, New Planets. And we're here to talk all about them. But first, as always, a warning. We're setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episodes, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for The Inner Fight is Captain Freeman assigns the lower deckers an overly safe mission to try and keep a self-destructive mariner out of danger. The episode was written by Mike McMahon and directed by Brandon Williams. No star date is given for that particular episode. And the finale episode, the last episode, the official synopsis for that, Old Friends, New Planets, is unavailable as of broadcast time. So suffice it to say, it is just, the finale, and we'll talk about what happens in it. The episode was written by Mae Darman and directed by Bob Suarez. And of course, the action of the episode takes place in the calendar year of 2381, but we have a flashback to 2368. That we'll talk about as we talk about the episode. In these episodes, Robert Duncan McNeil reprises his role of No, Nicholas Locarno. We all remember him. This is the character's first appearance, second appearance ever, I suppose, since the Star Trek The Next Generation episode The First Duty in 1992. And Shannon Phil reprises her role as Sito Jaxa, appearing, of course, in The First Duty and also in Lower Decks in 1994 on Star Trek The Next Generation. And some guy named Will Wheaton plays the role of Wesley Crusher. He was, of course, last seen in the last episode of Star Trek Picard, Farewell. Wow, a lot of nostalgia in these episodes. What did you think about these episodes? Let's talk about them together.
That works for me.
Yeah.
I watched them both tonight, so that's perfect.
Sure.
I liked them a lot. I think that if we're gonna skip to the end game for me personally, I think season 3 as a whole, these episodes are not my favorite.
Yeah.
But I still love them. Will Wheaton's cameo, very fun. I'm still very if you haven't gotten your flu shot, you need to get your flu shot because something terrible happened to me. The flu that's going around this, I couldn't, I can't explain it. It was terrible. It was worse than any bout of COVID I've ever had in my life.
Oh no.
It was awful. So get your flu shot.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I'm still getting over it. And so one of my ears is like blown out from the congestion. Does that happen to you?
No, but I have the last couple of days have felt something. I've got a big cold or a light flu. So yeah, things are.
Well,
things are
if it's been a couple of days and you still feel good enough to be on here, I think you're in the clear from whatever I had. But for me, I have my nose. This is my own journey, but my nose, it's not good. The septum is not good, and so it takes me a while to get over stuff. And so this ear is like I cannot hear. And this is all to say that I didn't recognize Will Wheaton's voice immediately until somebody said Wes, and I was like, "That's not Will Wheaton." And then I tilted my little head,
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, it's actually Will Wheaton!" Which was so I thought that was so fun. I thought that it was gonna,
yeah,
but I thought that it was gonna come back to pay off.
Oh well, it does in the connection, I guess, between Jaxa and Locarno and Mariner and everything else. But yeah, you think that he would something they don't do in this show, which maybe they should, is have the little blip at the end, like Rick and Morty has, or other things where there's just some kind of comedic little bit that's detached from everything else. Maybe that's where you would drop another West thing, but
that'd be a good thing for Lower Decks to do.
But he was he was a young man on TNG, and now he's a man.
I was surprised
his voice has changed. It's different. He was also kind of doing a thing though. He was doing a hey guys, come on,
like a young
a little squeaky
young
thing.
voice.
Yeah,
I felt it was totally after the guy said Wesley. And I was listening better, and frankly, till this ear I can hear out of, and I was like,
yeah.
Then I was like, oh, that's Will. I know him.
Yeah. How do you draw young Wesley Crusher? Give him that pouty. He's got that kind of Elvis, kind of pouty look,
I know because I
looks like Elvis. He got the slick back hair.
It's funny to say, but I was like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't recognize him at all. It's that's a cartoon.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, on our Sailor Moon podcast, we watched this episode where they're dealing with a guy who's an artist and he draws stuff, and so we see his paintings, and it's that's a drawing of people that are drawings. How do you make it? I don't know. It sort of blew my mind, but yeah, it doesn't. It's how do you represent young Will Wheaton? Well, that's how they did it. I have thoughts about these episodes, and they mostly come down to, I think it's been the thing to do. It's been de rigueur to just have a kind of plotty, big bad villain, for these finales. So that doesn't surprise me too much, and it all works out. But it really, more than other finales in the past, has been the epitome of the thing that is both on sale here and also the thing that a lot of people don't like. Well, a lot. I guess I don't like it. I'll speak for myself. And what I feel holds the show back. And that's the referencing things. It's just like this now is entirely a reference. It isn't just I love Yarmok sauce, me too. Like it's literally relitigating a character from a show 30 years ago, and stay tuned for us to cover the next season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is 60 years ago, characters and scenarios from that. And it's like, I was thinking about Taylor Swift, and this is a completely different situation. But Taylor Swift, you know, she needs to own all of her songs again. So she just like re records all of her songs. And her fans love it. But I've seen a lot of critics are like, is it really that important that you have to do this, and just you could be making other albums. You're putting all this creative time and input in the prime of your career into just doing this all over again. And that's kind of how I felt about these two episodes specifically in particular. I had my own kind of issues with Caves, but it was like four or technically five, like entirely new narratives for Star Trek. And I thought, great. But it's just like we're doing this. And Nick Locarno, like I was watching it with my girlfriend. She's a Star Trek fan, but like she doesn't know or remember every single thing that happens. And she didn't get that like Nick Locarno was Robert Duncan McNeil, like the actor playing that character as a joke because he also played Tom Paris. And, what's the point then? It's like that was totally lost on her. I know there are fans that will get that, but you're really only doing it for those fans. Like, is this for everyone?
This is great.
Is this for everyone, or is this just for, hardcore fans? I feel like they're so far up their own asses at this point. They have, proctology degrees, but I don't know.
So, oh my God. This is so what a comparison. This is hysterical. And not just because I'm wearing my Eras Tour sweatshirt, but oh my God. Okay, so I also my partner and my roommate were both sitting with me, and I did turn to them and I was like, Robert Duncan McNeil, he like I had to do the like thing where I'm like, which I'm very used to, but I was like, he played the guy from the other show, and they don't know what the show is. And then my partner was like, the 9/11 one, and I was like, exactly right, correct.
Which the 9/11 one?
Enterprise.
Oh, that. Oh, okay, right.
I've like described. I don't know how you describe Enterprise. You have a lot of love for it. I have a lot of love for it. But I describe it as I'm like it went a little dark because it was because of 9/11.
That is like, a good. That is a. I would try. I would say it's like Top Gun in space, but yeah, 9/11 is in space. Is that's what
I just think it went a little dark, and I think it was because of the current events.
Yeah.
And that's all right. But I find myself doing that a lot, and I think that I have thought this Lower Decks, they're not really like Lower Decks, and it's been this I think I think they've been clear about this from the jump. I don't think that they're making a point of like, well, it would be great if we could get like some new viewers. Mm-hmm. The way that like Discovery came out and it was like, well, anybody can just watch this from the jump and it doesn't have to be like you don't have to know everything about Star Trek. I think like from the beginning, everything about Lower Decks has been like an inside joke with other Trekkies.
Yeah.
And while I think that Taylor Swift's re-recordings are like a testament to female empowerment in the industry and like artists owning their own work and men being stinky, like et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift is first and foremost a businesswoman. She is a capitalist, respectfully to her. I enjoy her work.
Yeah.
She is making money and she is building an empire.
Yeah.
So, I respect her. The re-recordings, I'm very excited. The most recent one was very exciting. But at the same time, you're totally right. Like, it isn't like nobody cares about people care now because I think the Eras Tour has become such a phenomenon. That's a different podcast again. But you're so right that it really isn't for like other people. And with Lower Decks, like I'm kind of like, well, and with Taylor Swift, frankly, I'm kind of like, I don't really care that like other people don't get it. Star Trek is such a huge franchise. Frankly, I'm kind of happy that Lower Decks has the room to be what it wants to be without the burden of like drawing in new viewers. And I think that that in and of itself, like, if you make a good TV show, people will watch it, like, for the most part. I think, you know, the Paramount Plus situation, like, aside, where it's like this show is being made on a network that people are paying for, I think probably the overwhelming majority of Paramount Plus subscribers are only subscribing to watch Star Trek. I don't know if you would agree. I don't know who else. I don't know
And
anyone who has Paramount
Yellowstone.
Plus. Yellowstone?
Yellowstone's the biggest show on TV, but yeah, yeah.
But are the girlies watching Yellowstone? Are people watching Yellowstone? Like, are people subscribing to Paramount Plus to watch Yellowstone?
If they're old, so they don't know how to get it, in a special way. So if they're watching Yellowstone, and they have to be paying for Paramount Plus, or they get it
Yeah.
through a package, with their cable or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you know, I appreciate the idea that Lower Decks gets to do what it wants. And I think that's true of all Star Trek shows. I think one problem, or at least one thing that would make me feel um, more confident about where Star Trek was going, is if there was like a main Star Trek show um, that was moving the timeline as we know it forward, and was the thing that there was, like, there's Star Trek, and then there's Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and there's Star Trek Voyager, and these are all like variations on the main premise of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And if that ends up being, I don't really want to see a legacy series if it's going to be like Picard season 4. But if that ends up being legacy, then I think they should do legacy, because right now it's funny that, like, Brian Fuller, for a couple different reasons, but one of the main reasons that he, quit and or was fired from Discovery is that his concept for Discovery was that it was going to jump around and be something different, every season. So we're going to start in the pre-Kirk era, then maybe we'll do post-Voyager, then maybe we'll do something else, maybe we'll do 9/11 Star Trek. And they didn't want to do that. But without him, Star Trek has become that. There is just a series of series, and they're all set in throw the dart, hit the board, this era, that era, over here, over there. And that's great. And it's great that we're expanding the Star Trek concept. But I think, ironically and contradictorily, by expanding the scope of Star Trek, they've sort of watered down the message or the spirit of Star Trek. And I'd like to see a series set in the smack dab in the middle of their continuity that goes forward, that represents, as Star Trek always has, whatever series it was in the past, the current era that we live in, and deals with those things. And then if Strange New Worlds wants to give us like the goofy 60s like nostalgia vibes, that's great. If Discovery wants to push forward, an adventure story, about inclusion, that's great too. If Lower Decks wants to, goof off and do stuff, that's great too. But I'd really like to see like a series that they can all react to, because right now they're all just in their own eras going, we are Starfleet, and Cerrito Strong, and they're all kind of doing that. And it's thinning like butter spread over too much bread. Like, I think it's like diluting like the character of Star Trek. Because if I didn't, and I can keep all this straight because I've seen all the episodes and I can't help myself. I just, that was number 302. Like, that's the kind of person I am. But if I didn't know that and I just walked into the room, I'd go, oh, Star Trek's on. But like, what Star Trek? What is it? What is it saying? Who's on it? I don't think that would make any sense to any person who was not, who didn't know who Nick Locarno was.
Mm.
But anyway, did you like all the Star Wars references?
I don't know if where was there.
Oh my God. George Lucas should have got paid for this. They go to a desert planet to go to a cantina. And while they're there, a guy, a guy in a mask, who's a bounty hunter, comes in and does stuff. They go to a docking bay, where that's a circular docking bay with a thing up there. A mariner flies through an asteroid field to get away. She hides in one of the big asteroids, to escape her pursuers. She leaves that asteroid, and another ship follows her, like Boba Fett. It's just this endless Star Wars references. And I didn't know if that was like God damn it, we're going to do it. This is the finale of our fourth season. It's time for Star Wars references. Or that was just like, I don't know what to do here, the Star Wars reference. Or I don't even know I'm putting a Star Wars reference in because that's just, part of the vocabulary of sci-fi. But I thought it was very conspicuous, I thought.
That's funny. I didn't clock any of that stuff. I'm not like a huge. I like Star Wars. I like Star Wars a lot. Frankly, I think it's very enjoyable. But I'm not really like a. It's not my Star Trek. Star Trek's my Star Trek. And but that's funny because we were watching it, and when Mariner was first on Locarno's ship, my partner was like, "That looks just like a ship in Star Wars. Like that looks just like a
Oh,
Star Wars ship."
the all-white ship?
Like the
Yeah.
big white, yeah.
Yeah,
He was like,
yeah.
none of that wood paneling or
Yeah.
Starfleet carpet in here.
Yeah. What in the minimalist hell? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
Um.
um, what do you
So
think?
looking forwards,
Yeah. Yeah.
for you, looking forward, then I mean everything you said about, you know, butter spread over too much bread. Do you think that? And I think we've talked about this before that we've been worried about that they're doing too much, but like, what's the? Because I think at first it was like Discovery is the main show, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like they're pushing Strange New Worlds. Like, who
Yeah.
is? I think it's so. That was such a smart
Like
thing to say.
if you've got the Vampire Diaries, you can have the originals, but it's always going to sort of be paying attention to what the Vampire Diaries is doing, right? And so I think that it's important, especially when you have a universe, an IP, galaxy or solar system that revolves around, a main thing. That's that's a solid way to do things. And all the, Star Trek authors that we know who write things that are what they affectionately refer to as beta canon, things that sort of extrapolate characters or plots that have happened, in a main sort of continuity, a main timeline, which by default, sure, there was some overlap between DS9, Voyager, and TNG, but by default, there was just kind of like one torchbearer that led things forward. And I think that they should try to replicate that again, because that way you'll have a sort of centering narrative. And then when you want to do something that's in the past, you can react to that. Obviously, if it takes place before, I don't know how Discovery would interact with something in the future, but they've had time travel and stuff before. Or if something happens in your main timeline, then your future show can show the effects of that. But at this point, they're all kind of like making their own gravy in like 4 or 5 different pots.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to not, and Lower Decks doesn't have to worry about anything. We all know it's canon, but they've got portable Genesis devices. Like they're doing things for jokes, and that's fine. But like I feel like they're all kind of afraid of messing with each other. It's like when you've got 4 different Marvel shows on, and you've got 3 different movies that are going to come out, and one of them stars a guy who's on trial for allegedly beating his girlfriend up, and it's like this house of cards that's like, how do we push it forward? And is this movie just marking time? And are we just going to have fun with this one? But then we got to wait for Kang to show up, or is Kang going to show up? And where's Blade? And I think that having like a one central series would be really important. And like
That's
I
so
said,
funny that you bring that up, because earlier, when the first time you said it, I was gonna be like, that's what it was like at first with Agents of Shield, right?
oh yeah, mm-hmm.
It was like Agents of Shield. I thought was gonna be like the main show,
Yeah,
and then I don't know if you've seen it. Whatever. I feel like there's a lot going on there. It went downhill. I don't know if there was a hill. Did it get up the hill, or was I just like an angsty teenager and I liked watching the show? Like I'm not really certain.
Yeah, there were some behind the scenes producing scuffles too, when people coming into power, leaving power, and so as a project, it sort of lost its importance and then kind of forked off. But it's a fun show though. Okay, so anyway, but this is all like politics stuff. Let's get back to the actual episode. What did you think about taking an episode like, well, actually, technically taking 2 episodes, taking Lower Decks, the inspiration for this series, and taking The First Duty, another episode that features a character from Lower Decks, but also is about, characters who are cadets who are lower in status, and like kind of centering the finale on those two episodes.
I mean, I thought I thought it was good. I mean, it was good. I think I find that Lower Decks, even their weaker episodes, I enjoy a lot more than weaker episodes of other series. Like, it's a
Okay,
very strong show.
interesting.
That being said, I think that they really I think they really fumbled this season on not revealing Locarno and everything that was happening until the last two episodes.
Yeah, and
I think
I want
that
to give you credit. You were absolutely right. It was a two-parter. You called that very early, and it was so. I don't have the quotes, but I'll paraphrase Mike McMahon in that we didn't know the titles of these episodes until literally they came out, because he's like, "Oh, the titles are going to be too spoilery. I don't want people to know what's going to happen." And you look back at these titles, and it's like they're not that spoilery, but it does show that McMahon really did feel like he had, you know, got some things together here. Like they had really put something out that was important. So
and I would like to see, on that line, I would like to see, it would be fun going forwards if Lower Decks had seasons where there was more of like how there was kind of a plot this season, like from the jump to the last episode.
yeah,
But I would like to see like more than an intro scene or an end scene
yeah,
without any answers. I also think that, I mean, has Mariner like ever mentioned Cedo before?
no, no,
So I think, I mean, the show, I think that something and this is not, I think it's no secret that I struggle with being like negative, like in when we're criticizing the shows.
I I think it's a secret.
But
I
is
don't.
it? I
I
feel
don't.
like I have a hard time. I feel like every time I say something negative, I'm like, well, this is a great show. And there's lots of great people
Well,
working on it, and I hate to say something
okay.
bad.
You're trying to to soften the blow. You're trying to measure your criticism. I think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and also because it's like I feel like it's getting like the older I get, and then it's like I've had these few years now where I've been working with Star Trek Unlimited, and then like meeting people who work on this stuff. It's like there's so many people who work on these shows, and they're all doing such great work, and it's so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, this is a podcast where we are being critics of Star Trek. It's a recap podcast, and they really fumbled the bag not showing us, like, I felt like I wasn't able to see any of Mariner's growth because she's always just been kind of a hothead, right? She's always just been the one who rushes into danger.
Yeah.
So to see suddenly her friends are like, Mariner, you're being extra dangerous lately, like
Yeah. She's
it didn't
yeah,
pay
extra
off for the
dangerous.
character.
Yeah, when she's
um
always it was interesting to if that had been say something they did in the first season, maybe not the first season because you want her to change if she's really going to alter her behavior, and so we couldn't have three more seasons where she's not like Mariner, but having her always be like that. But this season it's different. Yeah, that did seem like why is it like different this season? But
and that
they
scene with her and the Klingon was
yeah
so like their conversation was so like fantastic and moving, especially
yeah
for like a show that is like a joke show and a cartoon.
yeah
Um, but I think it would have hit way harder if they had planted the seed much earlier.
yeah
And the
I
payoff
agree.
with Locarno also in the final battle would have also hit much harder and had a much better payoff if we had like if the B plot this whole time was us watching him like grow stinky about Starfleet or like whatever. I
Yeah.
would have liked to have seen that. I think it would have felt um as a viewer, I think it would have felt like totally different if we had seen that stuff ahead of time. I think it would have been better for the show.
Yeah,
Um
I agree. Maybe they felt like that would be tipping their hand too much. Just
oh, totally.
thinking about the secrecy that they had about the
Yeah.
episodes. But how old is
I
Mariner?
think well, cuz I think like do you think they wanted it to be like a big reveal?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. If
Because
Mar,
was it like Locarno's not like that's like a new character, right?
it's well, I mean, he was in one episode of TNG, so I mean, he's an old character. He was in as many episodes
Wait,
as
he
the
was in
outrageous
an episode of
Okana.
TNG?
Yeah. wait a minute. We just went through what were we talking about before? We just went through all this. He's in the episode where they're gonna the first duty of every Starfleet officer is to know that Nick Locarno was in the first duty. He's one. Wesley gets in trouble. The cadets they're gonna do the starburst maneuver, and a cadet dies, and they do a whole you can't handle the truth thing. Yes, he was. Yes, he was in it. Now does it make a little more sense now? It must have been so confusing before. So yeah,
No, nothing.
yeah, so this is my okay. I'll bag fumble.
So this whole time I've been like, I guess this guy's here.
I'm recovering the bag. Here we go. So Mike McMahon as the guy who, and I know a lot of people write on the show, but I'm just using him as the writer staff represented by him. It has a very tough tightrope to walk because you want to do a show that can do a joke. I hate laughing at it, but where they go to a place and you see a big skeleton that's got a Spock uniform on, and it's like, oh, that's Spock too from the animated series. He died. Now he's dead. I'm mad about it, but it's funny. And you want to do things like that, silly, funny things. But you also want to do Star Trek drama. And they really made like a big play at that in these episodes by taking this very, very dark, very kind of depressing beat from the end of TNG, where this young ensign, part of the lower decks crew, is sent on this dangerous mission and never comes back and is probably dead. And so we all remember that. And then Mike McMahon's like, let's plug our character into that. Yes, it's kind of, Mary Sue-ish, like, oh, I was there. I knew Nick Locarno. I was, with friends with Wesley. But what are you going to do? And so let's plug into that and have our character kind of be after the fact, sort of part of that situation, and use that to then take one of those characters and make a nemesis out of them. And it's like, I see all the things there, but I still feel like original characters in original circumstances would have been the way to go. Picard appears in the first episode of DS9 in order to establish a connection with TNG on DS9, but also for Sisko as a commander to stare down and try to big dog Picard, to show us that this guy doesn't respect rank. He respects integrity, and he has a chip on his shoulder, and we know more about this guy. And then, sometimes, like, I don't know, Data and oh, Mr. Data, meet Mr. Bashir, whatever. He was on set that day, whatever. If you're going to have connections, that's fine. But then Sisko would go on to have Ducat and the guy from Krull, Eddington, even Bernie Casey's character. These are all original characters that have a history, with Sisko, and they're memorable. Why does it have to be faux Tom Paris? Like, that's trying to do references and pathos at the same time. And it just, to me, it feels like, do you think we can get Patrick Stewart to give Mike McMahon a little kiss? I feel like I feel like more than anything else, that would take care of all. That's what he really wants. I think he's open to that. He's friends with Ian McKellen.
Have him tuck him in and give him a little kiss on the head.
Yeah, he'd do that.
That's funny.
So I just feel like, we're 4 years in here, and the show continues to just kind of do what it does. And that really pleases a lot of people. And for me, I just feel like I don't see it grow. Like, I'm not sure what it's growing into. It remains funny, sometimes very funny, a lot of times just kind of like, oh, it's funny. And they are always doing these things where it's like, hey, you remember the thing from the thing? And yeah, but it's like, I don't feel like it's perfected that formula, and I don't feel like it has grown into and become something more. I think it got really close in these 2 episodes with the aforementioned, drama that we were talking about. But I get it. Like, what do you do? Like, I'm not saying it's easy. I know it's tough to do. But I just kind of like, there's going to be a 5th season. I guess we'll see what happens with that. Do you think, speaking of the future, what do you think? Do you think 5 is the new 7? Do you think that they'll get 5 and then we'll, move on to another show? Or what do you think?
Well, 6 seasons in a movie,
yeah,
as it were.
Yeah.
I do think that 5 is the new 7. Um, for a show like Lower Decks, um, I would like, and I'm hoping, I think maybe it's likely that we'll get more than 5 seasons. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see. I don't know. I feel like TV, it's so bizarre because I feel like I very often, let's see, what am I actually thinking here? Um, TV is so different now with streaming, obviously, etc. Um, but then also, I feel, let me back up. Here's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. Because The Walking Dead went on for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and I never finished it because I felt like the quality got very bad. I didn't have any interest in watching these characters who I had loved and been so devoted for so many seasons, like whatever, do crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So I stopped watching. Then you have the spinoffs. Okay, the spinoffs. I never watched the spinoffs. And then I turn on my TV the other day, and there's an ad for a Walking Dead spinoff starring our man Norman Reedus as Daryl Dixon, and he is in France. And I was like, how did he get to France? It
Arrow through
what
the
is
beret.
happening?
Yeah, zombies
And
with
it
little
makes
mustaches.
me, and it's just beyond me. And so so let me see if I can. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pack this in to what I'm actually thinking about Star Trek. I guess here's my. Let's start with my concern. My concern is that they will, because of the shorter seasons, and because of streaming somehow, I don't know, they will let the show go on for too long, and then we'll get somehow a Lower Deck spinoff, and you're just going to be like, well, how have we gotten here?
Yeah.
And I think that ties back into what you were saying about how there isn't one main Star Trek show anymore. I'm like, is The Walking Dead even on the air anymore? Did it end? Why is there 5? I'm getting these ads for like Walking Dead spinoff shows.
I don't know.
Just make a new zombie show.
Yeah.
Make a zombie movie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, there are other zombie things, but none of them have succeeded like The Walking Dead.
Yeah. Did that was I able to crunch that up? Did that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
Okay.
I don't think that they're in too much trouble of that yet.
Yeah.
People want to talk about superhero fatigue. The Marvels is the new superhero movie, and everybody's kind of watching that, because if it doesn't do well, that'll be another big sign that we're tired of superheroes.
I mean, Marvel has been biffing it for like years.
Yeah, but it's more,
except for Loki. But I'm not caught up, so no spoilers.
It's more quality, I think. I think people will always watch something that's good. Well, yeah. That's not totally true. But no, but I don't think that the Trek audience is tired of Trek yet. I absolutely don't think that.
No.
But I do think that they would be better served by a franchise with more direction. You could argue that the 15th time that they shoot more torpedoes than they ever could have had on Voyager, or the middle of, season 4 and some of season 5, where DS9 is like, had a real good plan, but it was maybe a 5-year plan, and they had to stretch it out to make it fit 7 years. And so you get like really dumb episodes, like, I don't know, fill in the blank here. I'm not going to take a crap on any DS9 episodes, but do you know what I mean? Like, they knew where they were going, and they knew how much time they had to get there. And so they sort of planned things out. And then sometimes there was like, oh, Odo's a human now, and he's going to do goofy human things.
And then suddenly Daryl's in France. I'm like,
Daryl's in France.
Let's just cut it.
And I don't.
Sex Education, a fantastic show. I'm rewatching it right now because they just released the 4th and last season.
Yeah.
Because they were like, the kid, it's high school. It's been 4 years. It's an American high school. American high school somehow in England. It's been 4 years. It feels like the natural end of the series.
And with the shows,
I don't want Lower Decks to end. I don't think it's there yet.
And with the Star Trek shows
in the discussion,
the Star Trek shows all being around 10 episodes, I don't think that you will ever, run into that. I doubt that we'll get to a point where you're like, you know, Pike's hair is actually gray and not like salt and pepper. Um, but the funny thing to me is, okay, so you've got these 10 episode series, you could very tightly plan something to happen. You know, if you're going to do block of 10, block of 10, block of 10, maybe we get a fourth, maybe we get a fifth, that's fine. But yet they're not really doing that. And so every disco episode is like, clearly there was like a central thing, you know, we found a comet or we found something, but then the rest of it is just like packed with the, you know, packing peanuts of like long conversations about things that have happened or that we are worried will happen. Or like you'll drop a thing about, oh, Pike's looking at the service records of these kids that he's going to save in the future. And then we never come back to that because we just forgot, I guess, or because we had more things to do with Chapel and Spock's relationship, or Mabenga's going to murder somebody. And it's like, if you've got less episodes to fill,
We're like, drop
why,
that, cut to Chapel and Spock.
right, why aren't these things more tightly
The Order
planned?
Scott Pearson's novel.
And to give Lower Decks to give Lower Decks credit, they tried. They did kind of try to do that. It just amounted to a beginning scene where a new ship is like, oh my god, and then just back to whatever's going on. They did try to do that, but I'm surprised that these shows aren't better planned. And I know we just had a writer strike, so maybe that had something to do with it. But um, yeah, I don't know. It's funny if Star Trek had come back 20 years ago instead of, you know, well, almost getting on close to 10 years ago. Maybe things would be different. But Star Trek came back at a time when TV is changing and is continuing to change. And I think not only are they weathering, taking this idea that this guy had in the 60s, you know, about everybody being nice to each other in space, and trying to modernize it, they're also having to deal with just the new landscape of TV as well. And so luckily they've got a company that wants to make Star Trek and Yellowstone so bad that they merged with, you know, Paramount Studios, and they're building a Paramount Mountain on the Vegas Strip, and they are really behind this. So I think that it will continue for a while, and I'm glad for that. But I hope that I hope that they find, you know, I hope they find the vessel. They're the liquid, they're the water. I hope they find the vessel that they fit in. So, is that it? What do you think's going to happen in season 5? Any thoughts?
I think that one or two, I think some of them, not all of them, will get another promotion.
Interesting.
Lieutenant
Okay.
Commander.
Okay. That's very possible.
I think that Mariner is I think we're gonna see a different, you know, a little bit of a different character in Mariner going forward.
I think that's probably true. I was going to say I think one of them is going to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a friend.
Tendi and Rutherford.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
You know what I was thinking though about Tendi and Rutherford? I was like, if they ever do it, it's gonna be like the last episode of the show, and it's gonna be like a one-off line. Like that feels like a joke Lower Decks would do. Is like it's the last episode, and they're like, "No, you guys, the wedding's next week. We have to go back to Orion," and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "What?"
I could see that happening.
Yeah.
I think Tendi will be back immediately. In the
Immediately, or do you think there will be a little bit of a? Oh, I feel like they're gonna toy with it a little bit because we love, and this is what I said today. I was like, I love when she pulls out Masters of the Winter Constellations.
yeah.
When I saw the Orions on the planet, I was like, just you guys wait until Tendi gets here. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. They brought Boimler from the Titan back pretty fast, but maybe she'll come
That's
back
true.
and have more piercings or something. And
I have a tattoo where her hair is shaved.
Yes.
Tattoo on the side.
Yeah, the whole right side of her face.
Yeah.
And you know, I just thinking in terms of like what do they want to parody? What do they want to sort of reference? I don't know. I think it'd be cool if they, because they're trying to encompass all of Trek. Like get the Disco Stars. They'll be free. They can record some lines, right? Have
That'd be great.
a time travel. Have a Mariner. Michael Burnham show up, you know, or something like that. Or
But do you think after they already did the crossover, do you think they'll do it again?
Oh, people loved it. You know, yeah, do it again.
Like it was amazing, but do you think we'll get to have it again?
Do a Star Trek
Will Santa put
2009.
it in my stocking?
Yes, yeah, if you're very good. Uh, have a Kelvin Universe crossover. You know, drum up excitement for Star Trek 4. Have
That would be crazy.
Zachary Quinto show up. They're like, "Wait, you're Spock?" He's like, "Yes, I'm
I'll
Spock!"
lose it.
And he beats everybody up
He's like, look at me, look at my hair,
because
look
that's
at
what
my
he
Lego
does.
hair.
Since spoiler alert, we won't be getting together for a while. What do you think is coming up in the future for Star Trek as a whole? You know, we've already talked about some of our hopes and dreams, but we've got Michelle Yeoh movie, we've got Starfleet Academy, we've got a new season of Strange New Worlds, we've got possibly Star Trek Legacy, we've got Disco season 5. You know, anything that you're looking forward to or anything that you would like to see?
Um, they've confirmed they're doing Starfleet Academy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So imagine if you were like, no. um,
Nobody's cast, but
that that is what I want.
yeah.
That I think more even so than the movie, than Disco season 5, than the next season of Stranger Worlds, and the next JJ Trek. Like that is what I want. I think it's, what, at least 2 years out, maybe looking at 3 years out from that show.
Probably at least, yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
that's okay because I've I've done my waiting, and I'll do it again. Um, More than anything else, that's what I'm excited for.
that's cool. I'm excited for Prodigy season 2. I know that
Yeah.
the potential of a season 3 is probably zero. But I hope that the team that they've put together, the writers, the animators, even some of the cast, I'd like to see them get to do something in that vein again. I know that you generally don't. As I said before, Paramount, CBS, Viacom, it's a corporation. They don't do things just for fun. They don't do things as one-offs. So if you're making Prodigy, you're making it so you can sell toys and stuff Murphs, and I know that. So they're not just going to jump to something else and just give it a whirl. But I do hope that they retain the people that, the animators, the writers and producers. I hope that this is a chance for. Did you know David Lynch's Dune? Did you know that before David Lynch's Dune, uh, the filmmaker Hodorowski was going to make Dune, and he wanted to make it with like Mick Jagger was going to play Fade Rautha, and he had all these crazy designs, and he got all these guys together. He got like Mobius, he got like Dan O'Bannon, the writer on Alien and Dark Star, and all these people together to work on this. A couple famous designers whose names I can't remember, and they all worked on this Dune project, and they all had to walk away because it would have cost like $500 million in 1960 money to make. They couldn't do it. But all those people started talking to each other and started cross pollinating, and we ended up with people taking their talents to Star Wars, taking their talents to other sci-fi movies of the 70s and 80s, and it created this like cross pollination of talent. And I hope that getting to do a series like Prodigy, with that level of animation and that level of writing means that we don't close the door on that. I'd like to see that open up to people because I think I'd let my kids watch Lower Decks. I think it's fine, but we're a couple Mariner spread eagles away from some uncomfortable conversations. I'd like a more kid focused show like Prodigy, and I think whether or not it was a success, it succeeded in, I think, that being an outreach to younger kids. So that I don't really want to see Star Trek Legacy, but if Legacy fills that role that I was talking about, that sort of like mainline Star Trek series, I think they should go for it. I mean, I'd love to watch a show with Jerry Ryan, as the star. Go for it. Um, and I want to see this movie. It was going to be a show. Now it's going to be a movie. Maybe it'll be a Super Bowl commercial. Whatever form this Michelle Yeoh thing takes, yeah. Just give it to us already. Come on. What are we talking about here? But yeah, I mean, to use a kind of cheesy, example or saying, the horizon is open, second star to the right. I think they've got a lot of great years ahead of them and a lot of places they can go. And, I hope they go there. Or we find out next week that all the actors quit and the writers aren't getting paid what they wanted and the whole thing falls apart. Who knows? Who knows? Anything can happen.
Well, I was gonna say, have they, and like, do we know like what is the next show that's gonna be on the air then? Especially with the writer's strike.
Prodigy, or excuse me, Discovery will be back early 2024. That's what they said.
Okay.
So that's
wow.
That's what we're looking forward to.
That's a long break.
It is, yeah.
That's the longest break that we've had in a long time,
and
isn't it?
It's November, and it's long enough that they haven't. I mean, I guess they could drop it tomorrow if it's ready, but they haven't announced anything yet. So they're saying early, but it could be like Q2 at this point. So we don't know.
That's crazy. What will we do on Thursday nights?
I'm going to take up gardening. It's a bad time because it's
in the winter in Minnesota.
But you know, I like a challenge, so yeah, that's what I'm going to do. All right, well, if that's it, I think that's it. That's it for our show this week.
That's crazy.
And our coverage of the 4th season of Lower Decks. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD on the site formerly known as Twitter to get updates and to get notified when new episodes are coming out and when we come back from our break. Tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage. You can also email us at eistpod@gmail.com. And since we'll be gone for a while, I'll go through all the things. While you're on the internet, head to your listening platform of choice and give us a rating and a review on our show, Enterprising Individuals. It really does help us out. If you want to help the show grow, stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTPOD. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend and share it on social media. Discoverage will return sometime in the future for the 5th and final season of Star Trek Discovery. We don't know anything about it. I've been trying to think of like who's been like cast or something like that. If we know anything, we don't really know anything. Although we do know that Jonathan Frakes said that they didn't know when they were shooting it was going to be the last, but they did get a chance to shoot some extra scenes and give the like last episode some closure. So it'll get the tissues. It's going to be an emotional thing, but we'll be there to cover it when it does come out and going live as always at 8 p.m. Central on Thursdays. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTPOD. In the meantime, to get updates on Star Trek, Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode. We need the break. I'm ready to take a break. Thanks for joining me to talk about this. You have a podcast of your own, and let people know where they can find it or die.
I have a podcast. It's called Generations Geek. It's about all things geeky. It's more or less family friendly. I've been doing it since I was 13.
Yes.
So anything and everything that you like that is nerdy is on there. King Kong, Sherlock Holmes, Star Trek.
I'm a pretty big nerd. I've never been on the show.
Then there's something there for you.
When am I going to be on the show?
As soon as we start recording more episodes.
There's all kinds of things I can talk about.
Generations Geek has also been on a hiatus.
I can complain about all kinds of things.
The second that we start recording more episodes is when you will be on.
Have you ever seen? I know you talked about Frankenstein in the past. Have you ever seen any stage versions of Frankenstein?
I saw a recording of when Benedict Cumberbatch and
Johnny Lee Miller.
Jim. Yes.
Yeah.
I saw. I think I saw the version where Benedict was I can't remember. It was like my first semester freshman year of college that they aired it in theaters in the U.S.
Oh,
I think it was
like a fan.
I think it was Ben as Frankenstein and Johnny Lee Miller as the monster.
Johnny
I think
as the monster.
And that's the only thing that I've seen. And I haven't read it.
You haven't read Frankenstein?
I haven't read it. I'm not all the way through.
We got to stop this right now. You got to go read Frankenstein.
I know. Cut the cameras, dude.
All right, cut this off. All right, we'll do that.
We'll have you on to talk about Frankenstein.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
That'd
I'll
be
be there.
perfect.
See you tomorrow night. So I'm on Twitter at KA1IBAN. You can find all of the shows on the Just Enough Trope Network at Just Enough Trope on Twitter. We've got, well, my Star Trek show is on hiatus, but it should be coming back, fingers crossed, soon. We've got movie shows. We've got anime shows. We've got general pop culture shows. Everything you want to hear on Just Enough Trope, the network, available on your listening platform of choice. That is it for us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us to talk about Star Trek, and we will be back in the future, but we're signing off for now. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.